So I've been at OMS now since October last year, which means almost a year, which is pretty crazy actually. Financial services was where I definitely wanted to be. We are doing things like webinars. We're making the information really available to people. We want it to be convenient. It's people not being scared of technology and thinking it's going to replace them, because it's not. How can you possibly build something if you don't know who you're building it for and you don't know what they need? People have had to spend more time and money, and companies have had to put more energy into marketing to make it meaningful and actually add value.
And we saw you a shortlist in the Marketer of the Year Awards. That's super exciting.
Thank you.
And what's next for you?
One of the big things that we're really focusing on this year is support and building societies. We want to be on this modern mutual journey. I could get us to the point where we are the first thought when brokers think of a CRM for the right reasons, not because there's no other choice, but because we are the best.
Hello and welcome back to FinTech Diaries. Today we have the absolute pleasure of being joined by Jodie Andrews, who is the Head of Marketing at OMS. Jodie, thank you so much for joining us today.
No, thank you for having me.
I think we're both really excited to learn more about your career journey, learn more about OMS and just the amazing things that you're doing in the industry. To start us off, it'd be great to get a bit of an introduction to yourself and also OMS.
Yep. So I've been at OMS now since October last year, which means almost a year, which is pretty crazy actually. So I started in marketing for an architecture firm, must have been 6 years ago now. So I came out of uni and knew that I wanted to do marketing. I'd already studied PR and I knew I wanted to go into marketing. So I worked there, done their global sort of comm strategy, their marketing, all of the everything from social media through to, campaigns, etc. And then I went on to work at Spice of Heart. So that was my first taste of financial services. I looked after the Just Mortgages division and I absolutely loved it. And I knew that financial services was where I definitely wanted to be. So it kind of went from there, really. I worked sort of with all the Just Mortgages team. When you spend that long learning all of the FCA marketing compliance, it seems a waste to not just carry on with it, to be honest. So I spent a few years there, and then I heard about OMS, sort of started speaking to Dale on LinkedIn, and I moved over in October to look after their marketing and sort of help them launch, get their name out there a bit more, because they'd been established for quite a few years, but they were going into, lender originations, so supporting the lender side of the tech journey as well as the broker side, and it's basically what we're doing now.
Nice, amazing. So you sort of landed in financial services, bit of a happy accident then.
Yeah.
Which is, I feel like a lot of people that come on here always say, like, yeah, you don't really choose financial services chooses you.
Yeah.
But I guess now that you are in the role that you are, what kind of skills does it take really in your role to, as a marketing director, to really ensure that, OMS's name is out there and the brand reputation and all that is strong?
I think the biggest thing was, as it's tech, you obviously need to have a good digital strategy.
Yeah.
I think obviously there is a place for print, and I think there always will be. But when you're selling a tech product, you can't have a weak digital presence. So something that we work on quite a lot is making sure that we're always visible online, that we are doing things like webinars. We're making the information really available to people. We want it to be convenient, because that's what the OMS proposition is. It's meant to streamline. It's meant to be a convenient offering and make things easier. So that was the route we've taken with our marketing as well. So I think, as you said, I don't think anybody has ever woke up and said, I really want to go into financial services. Yeah, especially with marketing, because I think people assume it's quite a creative role, which it is obviously, but there are different sides to it. And I personally prefer this side more, the sort of strategy, reporting, as opposed to the more creative side of it. So this was sort of the perfect middle, really.
Definitely. And to Benise's point, loads of people don't find financial services as exciting. So I feel you've even got a harder job as someone in marketing to kind of really make sure it lands and people get excited by it. But with that, I think we both love to learn more about OMS, kind of what the mission is there, what you guys are trying to do.
Yeah, so OMS started in 2017. So the idea behind it was actually because Dale and Neil, who are the CEO and MD of the company, they had been brokers, so they understood the challenges that brokers were having, and they were frustrated with the options that were out there. They weren't working for them. So they created something in-house. The idea was for it to be in-house, and then it sort of grew legs from there. People in the industry caught wind of it. A few people saw the system and thought, oh, actually, that from a broker's perspective, that makes a lot of sense. So I think that's where their niche came in, is that it was built by intermediaries for intermediaries. So that's when the CRM sort of took off. We've got over 2,500 users on there now. So brokers, specialist brokers, all the way through to every part of the process is covered through there. So admins, whoever it may be. And then a couple of years ago, we realised that we could probably bring the same sort of vision to the lender market. So the idea of the originations sort of came about. We worked with MFS, Market Financial Solutions, so they were our first originations customer, and it's gone from there, and it's really blown up. Obviously, I can't say who we're talking to, but we've got a lot of people that we're speaking to, and the big niche that we're trying to keep is to be customer-led. And I know a lot of people say they want to be customer-led. We always do want to be customer-led. We always make sure that we're speaking to people. We're trying to spend the whole time asking people, what is it that you want? You know, what are your pain points? What is it that's made you even look elsewhere? Because I think there seems to be a bit of a trend where technology was telling people in the industry how to run their business process. So they were having to change to fit the technology's process. Whereas we took the route of, well, you tell us what your process is and it will mould for you. So it's bespoke. So that was something that we want to keep all the way through. So now having the CRM all the way through to the originations is fantastic. Yeah, it really does make a seamless sort of experience for those who use it.
Definitely. And the fact that obviously Dale and Co were brokers, so they were almost like the first users.
Exactly.
I think having that grounding is really, really strong.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess when we say customer in this sense, we mean the brokers. So really understanding exactly what the brokers' pain points are and all of that. And just for our listeners' sake, we just to clarify what origination CRM means, it'd be good if you could just clarify to our listeners what those definitions are.
So the CRM side of it, so that is the sort of hub of your business, really. So everything from when you go onto someone's website, so whatever process that you're, whatever industry you're in, most likely behind it, the companies will have some sort of CRM. It's effectively a database. So you can track, you know, what leads you've got, your customers, make sure that, you know, in this example of financial services, when they've got a product ending, you know, do they need insurance? Have you got all of the questions answered that you need for a lender? So whenever you think of doing if you've got a mortgage, you know how many documents and everything you have to fill in. Well, your broker also has to fill them in and file them and send them off and probably rekey them 5 times. So the idea of OMS was that the broker could spend more time actually sourcing, you know, the right deals, making sure that the customer is actually covered all the way through the process. We've got everything on there. So protection, you know, is something that's often overlooked. So, you know, general insurance for people, critical illness, things like that are often overlooked. It just gives the prompts to the broker as they're going through, oh, have I asked this? Have I asked that? They can upload documents. We have a customer portal. So instead of your broker having to chase you and you emailing over a bank statement, for example, we have things on the system that will just check it for you. So as much as it is, when I say the pain points are the broker as the customer, it's also the end customer. Because if your mortgage broker has got a better system and they're working more efficiently and there's less room for error, then you're not going to be sort of waiting around and waiting for your broker to contact you and say, oh, we need this, we're missing this, because the system will flag it up. And the origination side is where the lender can do the underwriting. So once that broker has, you know, done all the things you want to do, when they ask you for the bank statements and the various things you need, it will then go on to the lender where they look and essentially see if they're going to lend to you. So all the way through to when you get the keys to the house effectively. And we work with people as well on the after bit of that. So the servicing, as it's called. So, you know, when your fixed rates end, things like that. Yeah. So it's basically trying to keep everybody under one roof. So just to save room for error. Yeah. Consumer duties everywhere. And
yeah, I mean, the whole process at the moment is a bit disjointed, isn't it? I mean, a lot of and every business does it a different way. Every lender does it a different way. So kind of trying to unite everything and kind of bring it under one roof, as you say, is going to be really beneficial for the industry, I think.
Definitely. And it's one part of financial services that really has felt quite far behind. You know, it's one of the biggest purchases, if not the biggest purchase anyone's going to make. And it is at the moment, in most cases, still such a painful process. And I think because it involves so many different people across kind of the end-to-end process. So I'm really excited to see how it changes with OMS coming in, bringing this kind of seamless technology to really try and move this forward.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have probably felt not trapped, but maybe we can understand how big of a challenge it is when someone says, just swap all of your data, every piece of data you've got, lender putting X amount of business through a year, swap it all over to us, or broker with, 20 years of clients and expiry dates, etc., on an Excel document. Like, yes, it's maybe inconvenient, but you're also used to it. So I think it's taken that first step of, let us help you. We know what it is that they're looking for. So work with us and we can help you. We can tailor it to your process, as you said. And yes, we want everyone under the same roof as such, but understanding that there are different setups within that one house.
Yeah, because no one size fits all.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, you've got to be able to, tailor it. So I guess also from a, marketing perspective, how do you go about, I guess, kind of selling those benefits like that outweigh those risks that a lot of lenders or brokers will look at?
I think transparency and education has been a massive thing for us. So from the broker side, we attend a lot of events. I think if you're introducing technology to a firm or people who haven't used it before, as in this sort of technology, going online and, sending X, Y, and Z and pushing stuff out is great. But at the same time, they want to speak to somebody. I think we want to build a relationship with the people we work with. And that is how we get these market insights we're talking about how we know, this is what a broker's looking for. Actually, they'd really like this integration. They'd really like this little step sorted. And we learn that from speaking to people. So I think from the marketing element of it, it's just making sure we're always visible and always in the room, listening to the pain points, listening to what people's concerns are. And the same with the lender side of it. Obviously, the lender market is same as the broker market. You've got, everything down from very small lenders and building societies and brokerages all the way through to huge businesses. So the needs are different and the wants are different. So how we market to them, I think, is using other people's experience and, saying, well, we've worked with this person and this is what worked for them and this didn't work, and understanding that not everything fits all. There's no point taking the same proposition to, a lender of X number of billion to a local building society.
Yeah.
And we understand the difference and the different priorities that they have.
Yeah, and I feel they can really notice the fact that you've really understood them as a client, understood their kind of niches and differences. So I think that's really important. And I know you mentioned to Denise and I that obviously marketing is kind of the big area you're heading up, but also you're looking at partnerships a lot, and they're really important to OMS going forward. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, so when when Dale and Neil built OMS, they understood that there were people in the industry that already were doing things right, and it was just bringing them together. So that ecosystem we wanted to bring together. So we have over 45 integrations. We integrate with, best in class. So we understand there's already, sourcing systems, insurance providers, conveyancers, different, little small integrations, open bank and things like that people are already using. So why reinvent the wheel on that when we could work with them? So part of my role now is to sort of look after them relationships and identify, what it is that brokers are wanting, what it is that lenders are wanting. And that comes from, like I said, being out there speaking to people. There's one integration that we have that was such a small sort of factor, and it wasn't something that's always the ones you don't expect, isn't it? And every time I see it demoed, people love it. It's just a small company's house integration. And you would think it's something, we spend months and months on these huge APIs for lenders and things like that. And it's this little integration that people love. So I think that comes from listening and forging them partnerships with them people. We do work very closely with our partners. I can't name them all because there are so many, but we always make sure that we are always in close communication with them and that our brokers and our clients have access to them as well.
Yeah.
I think the last thing anyone wants is to be, logging onto the system and thinking, how do I do this? How do I do that? We always try and have the things available, user guides, videos. We try and always be one step ahead. So when someone asks and says, oh, I don't know how to do this, we'll point them in the right direction and say, well, great. We've already got a user guide for that. So here you go. And then if you need us, we're here.
Yeah. I think integrations are like the next best thing. Like, in terms of having a seamless customer experience, I think even for me, if I go onto an app and it asks me to then go onto another app or do anything else, immediately no. And I don't want to do any more than that with that app. So it's making it seamless, making it more comfortable, taking out all the manual little steps that like Companies House, I imagine you'd have to like get it up separately. And for a lot of lenders, I can imagine that takes out so many steps that they would normally have to do.
Yeah, it just makes it easier. I think the process they're doing is the same with or without OMS, for example, but how they do it and the efficiency they can do it in, it's like a pit stop, isn't it? We could all go stand on the side of an F1 pit stop and try and change something, but we'd take a really long time to do it. So it's the same with that. We've already got it there. So it's not saying that, the process that people can't do it. It's that, if there's something there that can help you out, especially in the market at the moment where everything is changing so quickly. Like, I can't imagine how frustrating it must be for a broker to, spend all of this time, for example, doing a fact find or doing something on Excel just for them to be told 6 hours later that a rate's changed.
Yeah.
Whereas the system will tell you that. So I think it's people not being scared of technology and thinking it's going to replace them, because it's not. It can if you want it to, but it's moldable. It can be an aid. It could be, take over a process, or it could help process. So I think that's the big part of it.
Definitely. And it sounds like loads of really exciting things going on for OMS at the moment, and obviously going into these new areas. But what about the kind of long-term vision for the company? Have you guys kind of sat down and really mapped out, where you want to be in 5-10 years and what that looks like?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is we want to disrupt the market. We want to we've shown our hand as such. We want it to force others' hands to, move forward. There's a lot of archaic systems out there. There's a lot of archaic, systems that people have been using for a while. And I think with us coming on the market, we've written new code. We've got all of these new things in the background, new ideas, a different perspective of it. I think it's made, a little bit of disruption of like, well, maybe we need to not be so complacent. So we're hoping that we can keep that moving forward. We're hoping that us constantly saying, there is no roadmap end for us. We're just always going to keep building. If there's something that's coming out, if, the FCA is never going to stop changing things, the Bank of England is never going to stop changing rates. There's always going to be changing. So we need to be there with it. So I say the next 5-10 years is just growing. It is just prioritising what it is that's upcoming, staying close with, everybody in the market from every stage down to the consumer who's getting the keys to their house, all the way through to the broker who's facilitating it for them, the insurance companies, the lenders, everyone in between. Because as soon as you miss one part of that, suddenly the whole thing collapses, doesn't it? And how can we build a successful system if we don't have all the information? It's like being a stylist and someone saying, pick a pair of shoes, but we're not going to tell you who it's for, what the event is, or what else they're wearing. So we just want to keep that transparency rolling through the whole time. And that will be with the integrations we partner with. It will be with advancements to the system. And it will be with, who we bring on and things like that as well.
Yeah, super exciting. I'm really excited to see what's next for OMS. We'd love to take it down kind of your personal career journey a little bit now. You mentioned that you studied PR, and then you went into marketing. What was it about PR that sort of interested you from the start?
Well, I actually started in investigative journalism.
Okay.
Nice. I started in that and then sort of had a change through uni. It was the same sort of thing, but I changed to focus more on public relations. I think I love journalism and I always will, but I always saw it as something that maybe I would like to do alongside my job, how we write content and things like that, as opposed to the main focus, because I do like the strategy, I do like reporting, I like data. So I think that was a big thing for the PR. I like all of the different elements of sort of building the brand building as well. And I think that's what comes with PR. So, doing the research, what is it that the market's missing, finding the gaps, seeing if it works, working with all of the different publications. So that was what led me into PR. And then there was certain parts of it that I obviously stood out to me more, like the brand build and the marketing element of it. And here I am.
Yeah, and then talk us through that kind of first role. I guess it's always quite tricky, isn't it? You come out of university and you're like, where do you start? So how did you decide that kind of first role to go into?
I had sort of looked around at I looked at agencies, because there's two different types really, isn't there? Sort of the agency route or, going in-house for a company. So I'd sort of looked around and I spoke to a few different companies, and I looked originally at sort of the legal sector. I liked the look of that. And then I went for an interview at Crittle. So it was a construction company. They'd been around, 200 years. They were making steel products and they were global. Once again, not something that anyone comes out of uni thinking, I want to go and market steel windows and doors. But it was really interesting. And I got to work on the, things that I figure out what it was I liked and didn't. I'd done the influencer marketing. I looked after the American and Australian marketing as well, which is really different to ours. And yeah, I think I found what I liked doing in there. I loved doing the reporting. I loved doing the, I think marketing's very push and pull. I think if you just push, then you're not going to get very far.
Yeah.
So I think that's where my love for that side of it came in.
Yeah. It's interesting because I feel like a lot of people, when they think marketing, they'll just think like consumer goods. They won't really think about marketing in any other industry. And it's actually so important, probably even more important, to be honest, to have a marketing aspect to, I wouldn't say, boring or anything like that, but, it's slightly less exciting.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I think, you're dead right. I mean, there's B2C marketing, which is where I started, to the business to consumer market and, going out directly to try and get business, like you said, like consumer goods. And now at OMS and largely at Spice of Heart as well was a lot of marketing B2B, so marketing to other businesses.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's easier in some ways because, for example, LinkedIn is a great place to market to other businesses. You've got a straight platform there, which is, us trying to show OMS to brokers, showing to lenders, showing X, Y, and Z. Whereas with B2C, I think it's a little bit different. You're competing very heavily with, I think it depends. I've always been in a sort of service-based marketing, so there's not a physical product. So it's a bit of a longer sort of timeline normally on how you get it over the line. If you're in if you're trying to sell a retail product, someone could go online, click buy, and then you're done.
Yeah.
So it's a lot easier to sort of track how well things are doing. So I think that's why you have to spend more time on the reporting side of it here, because, you can't go online and click a buy OMS button. You've got an account manager, you've got BDM, you've got all of these things. So I think, understanding that it is more a longer process and not to get sort of disheartened by, I don't see a result in 1 second.
Yeah.
And how have you found as well, being at OMS, it being a smaller brand, as well as obviously marketing, making people understand what OMS does and the benefits, also building the brand credibility? I mean, that's quite exciting, especially when you said the brand side of things is something that really interested you. Yeah,
definitely. To be honest, all of the jobs I've been in have always been to start the team. I definitely enjoy that.
Yeah.
So at Crittle, they'd had a sort of a marketing assistant in the past, but it was more of a back burner, as marketing has been in the past in service-based industries. I think it's only been the last probably 5 to 10 years where people have thought, actually, there is so many options out there now and people want more from companies. Paying for an ad on Google and putting yourselves at the top used to get you a lot of clicks, but now consumers are more wary and they say, oh, that says ad, that says sponsored. Does that mean they're the best, or does it mean they've paid to be there? So I think people have had to spend more time and money, and companies have had to put more energy into marketing to make it meaningful and actually add value. So the same with at Spice of Heart, they'd always had sort of marketing functionality, but their core business was estate agency. But the financial services element was starting to take off, and they needed to market to other brokers to come on board and things like that. So even though OMS is smaller in terms of how many of us work there, it's odd because I think the thing with a tech company is the actual scale of the company is huge, but because it's sort of all digital, you don't need it's not like a massive, we have a huge office with thousands of people. It's, core people that really understand it and, sit and work on computers. And it's crazy how far tech can spread without that many hands spreading it, if that makes sense. So, yeah, I really enjoy it though, working with, obviously Dale and Neil have been in the industry a long time.
Yeah.
And they have seen all sides of it now. So the lender side, the technology side, the broker side, every element of it, we've got someone in the business who has done it before, and that makes a massive difference.
Yeah. Unfortunately, marketing is kind of seen as a big cost, but like you say, the return on investment is quite, huge. Even though sometimes I think it can be hard to prove. I think particularly from like a branding perspective, like you said, that reporting and that data element is probably a lot harder to prove how a brand may be perceived by a client or a customer in their minds and how they may think of you at some point in the future. Like, all of the networking and things that you're doing, it will kind of have that brand reputation impact, but you won't really get to see that maybe until, like you say, you won't see it after 2 seconds. It'll kind of take time.
Yeah, I think one of the great things about the financial service industry is we obviously have a lot of events. So in the last sort of 6 months or so, we know our name's been out there more because, we're being invited to more, like this, for example, we're being invited to sort of speak in the industry more, be on panels, invited to come to events and things like that. So I think having that brand building and knowing that is the result of it makes me think, it is working. Obviously, the leads and the conversations we're having are also fantastic, but being invited into that, like we said, we wanted to disrupt the market. The market was already sort of there and had solidified their place in this industry. So for us to sort of now be in there as well, which we may not have been a few years ago, I think that shows how far we've come. So it is great to see and to be getting them sort of requests, can you come on panel? Can you do this? As an opportunity for OMS to sort of say, well, here's something different.
Definitely, and clearly is a credit to all your amazing work leading the marketing space. And we saw you were shortlisted for an award. I think it was shortlisted in the Marketer of the Year Awards. That's super exciting.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. That was a real surprise, to be honest, because there are a lot of people who I'm up against who have a long history of experience in the industry. I think financial services changes so much all the time. There's so many elements to it, specialist and residential and the lender side and building societies, and there's just so many different sides to it. So coming in, having the broker experience and now the technology experience has definitely helped. But it has, I was very shocked but very excited to be put in there with them other women. Obviously it's a Women's Recognition Award. So it was a massive thing for me to be in there with these other people who've been in this a long time.
Yeah.
And really have made, big changes to their businesses.
No, it's really great. And I think something that I think we're both interested in is this is obviously a massive role you're in, helping to lead and grow this company. What qualities would you say have enabled you to be in this leadership role, helping to drive a company forward? Like you say, the amount of different players and things going on in the industry you need to be keeping up to date with is a lot. So what would you say, like, you put your success down to, or qualities that have really helped you get to where you are today?
I think you've got to be quite confident. I think that is a huge thing because marketing is so subjective. It's not, it's not like if you're an accountant, there is a right or wrong answer. It's either right or it's wrong. It's not like that. It's very subjective. So what one person may like, someone else might not like. So I think having confidence in what you do and what you're putting out there there's a difference between being wrong and that's just not to someone's taste.
Yeah.
So I think that's something that people sort of have to deal with quite a lot early on in their market and career. Is you could spend a long time on something for someone to say, oh, that's not how I would have done it, but that's because it is just everything's constantly different, isn't it? Everyone has different opinions. There's a reason why there's 500 different clothing brands, is because not everyone wants the same thing. So I think being confident that you've done your research and that the decision you've made and the reason you've gone with this branding, or you've gone with this concept, you've gone with this campaign, making sure that you've got your reasonings behind you so you can say, look, this is why we've done it, and this is like how we've come to this decision. So I think, confidence is a massive part of it, and also communication. I've spent a lot of time having to learn about the financial services industry. I think, when you're a broker, you sort of go into it straight away and you learn about it as you go. Whereas, yes, I'm marketing a product and things like that, but I need to be able to understand the industry. It's not enough just to understand OMS, or I've got to actually understand the industry. So I think having patience with yourself, that it is confusing, and that most everyday people in their lives don't know everything about the mortgage process. So I think being a bit patient with whatever industry you're going into, and just accepting that it does come with time. I know it's very cliche that that how important time is, but it really is. There's only so much information you can take in and hold over a short amount of time. So
yeah, I mean, even like the knowledge and confidence thing, there's sometimes two opposing factors in your head. Like if you feel like you don't know everything, you feel like you can't be confident, and vice versa.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think really like being able to demonstrate both skills at the same time is definitely a credit to you.
Thanks. Yeah, it does just come with time. I think, like you said, trial and error, and thinking it's not necessarily a negative. It's just an opinion. It is an opinion.
Yeah. Nice. And what's next for you in your career, would you say? I mean, your role at OMS, and where you want to take it to next, and what's going to be happening.
I think the origination side for us is huge. We're talking to a lot of lenders at the moment, and one of the big things that we're really focusing on this year is support and building societies. So I know you obviously know a lot about that. So we want to be on this modern mutual journey with building societies. We understand that, a lot of building societies have been around for a very long time, and what we would hate to see is for them to not thrive and go on for another 100 years because they haven't adapted to the next generation of members' needs. So I understand, we've spoken to a lot of different members of building societies, and I think there is a fear there of, how do we do this? How do we transform like this? We've done it this way for such a long time. So for me, I want to be a part of, showing that area of the market. This is not something you can't look at or do. We're ready. We've got it ready. We've got a separate proposition for building societies. We understand it. We know the difference between a customer and what a member means. It's very different. There's a different relationship, isn't there, between a building society member? There's that sense of loyalty, and we want to show that it doesn't have to be if you bring tech in, it doesn't suddenly make it impersonal. It actually solidifies the place in the market. There's a new generation who unfortunately may overlook a building society if they have a paper-based process, if they're not using a client portal. So we want to work with them to show them, this is good for you. This is positive. It's not a, fall in line, or people should want to, because when they actually see the benefits of it, it's fantastic. So I think that would be a massive success for me, is if we could, work with more building societies and be able to show how useful it can be. I think that would be absolutely huge. But personally, it is that brand building. If I could get us to the point where, we are the first thought when people think of it, when brokers think of a CRM, or when lenders think of an origination system, we want to be that first thought for the right reasons, not because there's no other choice, but because we are the best, and because we've spent the most time and energy working with people. And I think that would be a huge achievement, definitely.
Brilliant. Yeah, and I guess, from like you were saying earlier, customers benefit from your systems, and the ability to have all those integrations means that the brokers can do their jobs faster, and therefore that means more loans and all better things. So yeah, no, good luck, and we can't wait to see what's kind of coming next for OMS.
Yeah, and I think like we mentioned, the theme for this season is all about women in leadership, women like paving the way within the fintech industry. And we have asked all our guests this. Do you have any kind of antidotes or thoughts or kind of things that you've seen, kind of especially when you did that switch into financial services, where probably became a lot more male dominated? Don't know how you have kind of navigated that more male dominated industry, and especially going into the mortgages lending space, because we know there's a bit of an imbalance there.
Yeah, a bit. Just a little bit. I think that's where you've got to have the confidence, and that's a very easy thing to say, but a harder thing to do. So I think my advice would be, I don't know how to phrase it the other way, really. You've got to fake it till you make it a little bit. You've just got to get in the room.
Yeah.
I think if an opportunity is presented to you, it can be intimidating, and I can imagine that it's a lot. Well, I know it's a lot better now, and anyone coming into the industry now is more fortunate because there are women leaders. There are other roles available to women now, paved by the likes of those who had come into the industry early on, and it was male dominated. So I think don't be intimidated when you do go into a room and when you do go to these events. I think that's where you could make or break your opinion on being a woman in financial services to be at the events, because you can walk in there and you're going to have the chairman or X, Y, and Z who are up there doing a presentation, doing the presenting, and if all you're seeing is men, it can be quite intimidating. So I think getting yourself in the room and getting yourself in there, meeting people, making relationships with people, speaking to other women in the industry, I think is a massive thing. But it is intimidating when the age part of it as well, I think, can be intimidating. The one thing about financial services I've definitely noticed is that people don't tend to leave, like you said. So those who you may meet have been there sort of 40 years or 30 years or 20 years. Everybody knows each other, and when you're coming into that, it's quite intimidating. So I think making some allies who when you go to these events, you'll see each other, that you're make an effort to network outside of that. So when you go there, you see a friendly face, and then suddenly you don't feel as sort of out of place. But I'd like to see more people coming out of college and uni with an interest of going into the financial services industry, especially with marketing, because it's not sold when you're at uni. They're not saying this is a great career, you should go into financial services marketing or insurance, things like that. It's everyone wants to do the creative and the, like you said, the consumer goods, the fun, the going on Instagram and posting reels and all of these like fun things, these new clothing companies, all this sort of stuff, which is great, but this is needed as well. And this is a really, really lovely industry to be in, with very rewarding, and I think very loyal as well. I think people build good relationships here. So I think that was, that wasn't really a piece of advice. It was just a...
That's really good. And you're right, confidence is key. The fake it till you make it. I think that is the only way. And your piece on more people going into financial services and marketing in particular, I think you're completely right, because we've spoken to other people and stats have come up for something like the number one cause of ill or bad mental health is due to financial stress. So like a crazy percentage of UK adults do not understand financial services, do not understand how it works. So if we can market it more effectively to businesses, to customers, the impact that can really have, I think, could be huge.
Yeah, because I think a huge thing is that consumers are just being bombarded all the time with what they should know. Then you have to turn the TV on, check your credit score, check this. Have you done this? Are you owed money? Are you owed this? You owed that? And I think it's so overwhelming when you've also, obviously, we're lucky because it's our job. So, when my own mortgage comes up, I know a little bit more maybe than someone who isn't in it. But I can imagine it's really, or before I was in this industry, it is really stressful. It's majorly stressful. You don't know where to go. We say the terms intermediary and all this sort of stuff, brokers, and it seems like obvious to us when you're in it. Of course you get a mortgage broker, but not everyone does. Some people go straight to their bank, or they don't actually ever know what that is or what the benefits are. So like you said, I think when you're being bombarded with information all the time, check your credit score, how, why, what does it mean?
Yeah.
You've got so much information coming at you all the time, and I can understand what stresses people out, because also the media does have a way of, unfortunately, catastrophizing, a base rate change. People are thinking, oh my God, people are pulling out their houses, they're pulling out their deals. They hear the word equity release and they think that means that they're not going to get an inheritance. They hear the word bridging, they think they're going to, there's so many things there, I think, in specialist lending. This, I think, is going to be a huge, huge thing that changes in the coming months and years, is that people are more receptive to it. It's not, when someone says, bridging, or they've got adverse, they've got things like this, actually be something very small. With COVID, I think we'll see a lot more that people do have missed payments, people do have X, Y, and Z. It was a strange time, but I think it's highlighted, the British get the sort of energy crisis, things like that. People were struggling. I think specialist lending now is not reserved for this big bad thing in your head where somebody's had a terrible financial status for a while and they're really struggling. It's actually everyday people. And I think the more that we work with the specialist lenders, and the more the specialist lenders sort of come forward and put themselves more out, like those who do high street lending do, I think then the market will probably be less scared and intimidated, as in the consumers.
Yeah, it's definitely about kind of embracing that kind of flexibility a little bit more and being able to, suit customers' needs. I think that's the big one that a lot of banks and building societies are now looking to do. I think it's always been something they want to do, but technology hasn't always allowed them to do that. So hopefully with OMS coming into the space, they can.
Yeah, we're really trying to avoid the not completing the circle, basically. So telling someone you need this, but not showing them how or why.
Yeah,
I think we're, as an industry, bad at doing that. Like I said, you need to check your credit score. Why? What does that mean for me?
Yeah.
Like, you need to keep this. You need to do this. But why? Why do I need to do that? Why do I need to have a credit check? Why do I need to have a system? So being able to, I think, spend more time building proper relationships that are less transactional for the broker with the customer, and also for us with the broker and with the lenders, building a relationship with them. It takes time, but I think in the long run, it will make the process better for everybody.
Yeah.
And, Dale's a member of OMS, or a member of the OPDA group. And I think that'll be a huge thing as well, the Open Property Data Association. I'm hoping that is something that is going to change, and, there is more transparency, because I think there's been a history of maybe working against each other when actually everybody could be working together to get a much more solid outcome for everyone, because we need people to move. The economy needs people to keep moving and keep the property market alive. And I think hopefully that as well will increase the speed that happens in as well.
Yeah, it's really interesting that, because I think you're right. The OPDA is really looking at every component across the end-to-end process. So you're not just having one element that's moving forward and tech-enabled. It's trying to look, we need all players to be kind of moving together. So it's really great that Dale and the rest of you are involved in that initiative. I think it'll be a really good one. And what we do at the end of every episode is we finish with a fire round kind of set of 3 questions to just sum up your experience and just kind of sum up the podcast. So the first question, Jodie, is what would you like to be known for?
Me or OMS?
You.
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Okay. It would be lovely to encourage more younger women to get involved with financial services. I think if I could be known as somebody that didn't fall into it, later in life, after being a broker, that you can go in without any, you don't have to have been a broker first or been an admin, straight out, you go straight into this and say, this is a career I have chosen to go into. It'd be fantastic to be known for that. And, the person that brought OMS to the forefront of the industry and gave them the visibility that they deserve, that would be very exciting. That would be a massive achievement.
Yeah. Hopefully you've inspired someone today with this podcast. One step at a time, one listener at a time, guys. And the second question is, if you could change anything about the industry, what would it be?
I think the fear of change. I think, unfortunately, as you said, it's the biggest decision and financial thing often that people deal with. And I think it is a huge, huge thing for every part everyone involved. It's a huge amount of money, it's a huge amount of stress. So I think there needs to be more sympathy from our side, not the consumer, that we understand, why the consumer is so stressed, as you said, like the mental health side of it, understand and why people are so stressed, why it is so intimidating for them, why they have so many questions. And instead of pushing them away and being frustrated, do something about it. As we said, we've got a system, we've got this, we've got that. Why do something about it? Stop trying to push it away and like we're saying with OPDA, be transparent. Explain to people why it is that we have to do this, why it takes so long, and work with the people like OMS to make the process better. So I think not being afraid of change, not seeing it as a negative that, a piece of technology has come about that can replace a process, I think would be a huge thing. Definitely.
Well, yeah, really good. And it'll be great to see OMS constantly disrupting that market, constantly pushing change forward, because it not only helps you, but it helps the others, because other players have to keep up with you. And finally, is there a book, podcast, show that has inspired you that you would recommend for our listeners?
Crossing the Chasm by Geoffrey Moore is a book that I read probably about a year ago when I was starting to look at getting into this sort of space, because, like I said, I was in the broker side before. I was, looking after the advisors and sort of supporting them with marketing to consumers. And then when I went into the tech space, I thought it was obviously very different. So I read this book, and it basically applies to any new company or any new piece of information, new piece of tech. And he basically says that you have to get past what they call the chasm. And that's the bit where it can all go wrong or all go right. And it is effectively where you either lose everybody and it fails, or you pick up momentum. So the idea of it is that you have to have them core people at the start, early adopters, that you work with and you use as like your long-term partners. And I just thought it was really interesting, because it's true, you can't, you don't launch a new product and go straight in with the biggest company in the industry. You have to sort of go with people who okay, they actually do all of their things online already. Maybe they're the person to target first because they're already receptive to tech. And then you get that reputation. So the idea is that then people sort of carry you across that chasm into the maybe second stage adopters, and then, at the end, those who are that hard to challenge. Because I think people get excited when they launch into a market and they want like the difficult bit, don't they? They want to like succeed and get that, the untouchable person that, everyone else has tried to get them to transform their tech, and we're going to do it now. But it doesn't work like that. And I think your early adopters should be nurtured. And we've always stayed very close, and we've worked massively with, some of our brokers networks that came on really early doors, and they've been a huge influential part of building the system into what it is today. We have great relationships with them, and that's where the partnerships elements, I think, comes in. How can you possibly build something if you don't know who you're building it for and you don't know what they need?
Exactly. And those people will champion you. They will help build that really strong reputation to allow you to build those bigger clients.
Yeah.
Really good one.
Nice. Yeah, no, really good one. Thank you so much for coming to our podcast today, coming on our podcast, and really shedding some light on what it takes to be a marketing director in financial services. I think it's been super interesting and both learned a lot.
So much. And I'm really excited to just see where OMS goes. I think it's doing amazing things, and we're just going to continue to see more and more.